Wagwan, everybody. Welcome to the Dis Affamie History podcast, where we'll be speaking about history and as well family history and how history relates in terms of Caribbean people for the present as well as in the past, and how in the past what that does and brings forth for what we are going through at present and what we can learn from our history, from our family, and take that moving forward. So I do hope you enjoy the podcast, and if you like it, please ensure to subscribe, like, and review. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Fashola, for coming on to the podcast, Dis Affamie History, and to be able to speak on to your article on the ontology of hair that we're going to be speaking on. And I'm really looking forward to it because it is an identity crisis. And if you could just be able to, before we start, just give a brief introduction for the listeners.
Joseph Fashola, yes, a Nigerian, and I had my studies in philosophy. I had my first degree in philosophy, my second degree, and then PhD in philosophy. I'm currently a lecturer in Redeemers University, Ede, Nigeria. And I teach philosophy in the Department of Religious Studies and Philosophy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Professor. Now, would you be able to just describe, or what was your motivation to explore this relationship between hair and identity in the context of African literature?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me once again. See, the paper, The Ontology of Hair and Identity Crisis in African Literature, was written by myself, Joseph Fashola, and Hannah Abiodun. So the motivation to further explore the relationship between hair and identity in the context of African literature was born out of the understanding that hair is very, very important to people, different cultures and from different races or different backgrounds around the world. So hair can serve as a link, though not the link, but a link between people and their race. It can serve as a link also between individuals and their religion, even their culture, their mental state, their state of health, and their social status. So we have all this. It's very, very easy to find these links there. So the relationship between hair and race was stated beautifully crafted by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. You must have read some things about her. Her book, titled Americana, is very, very instructive here when it comes to hair and identity. In that book, she says something very important which drew my attention to further explore identity in African literature. She said, in American society, hair represents the racial roots in the society. And then I tried to see what the main character in that book had to say. That is, Ifemelu is the name of the character, the main character in the book. Ifemelu said something very, very interesting too. She said that hair is the perfect metaphor for race in America. And then Adichie, the author of the book, Americana, went on to illustrate how hair, a feature in the human body, can pass a message, of who a person is. She made a distinction of two individuals. She said, an American and then an African. She said the African woman's hair is kinky. That's her description of it. Mm-hmm. And that the American woman's hair is sleepy. Then she went on to say something very instructive, that the Africans usually want to appear like the Americans. And for that reason, they go on to relax their hair. Now, when they go through this process of relaxing their hair, something happens to them. They lose their identity, according to her. Why? Because after relaxing their hair, they no longer look like the African woman that they are supposed to look like. And they actually do not look like the American woman. Now they are caught in between. They are lost. And so, if you read further in that book too, you see the character Ifemelu said something very important too. Because she too, when she went on to cut her hair, something happened to her. Just to tell us how hair has something to say about the identity of the individual. When she cut her hair and went to work, someone met her, a lady, and asked her, "Why did you cut your hair? Are you a lesbian?" Now, you see, the the reason for that individual to ask the question, "Are you a lesbian?" is just to show that there is a change in identity, no matter how much it takes. So we see that hair is very, very important. And the motivation to further explore the relationship between hair and identity in the context of African literature was born out of the understanding that, hair is very important to people of different cultures and different races around the world. That's the reason.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. And just for, definition, can you define ontology as it relates to African culture?
Yes. In philosophy, ontology is a branch of metaphysics. Yes, and it is, in fact, the study of being, any being at all. And in African philosophy, African culture, see, ontology is also the study of being. But this time around, it goes on to make reference to the relationship that exists among beings. And that this relationship that exists among beings is such that the one affects the other. One being affects another being. So when being exists, they exist in an intersubjective manner. And the way they affect each other is either benevolently or malevolently. So when it comes to the ontology of hair, you see, the paper makes reference to metaphysical interpretations or significance of hair, metaphysical significance of hair in relation to the culture of the African. This is because culture is a physical manifestation of a person's ontology, of a person's beingness. So this is the very reason why hair is related to culture.
Perfect. And then how is hair deeply rooted in African identity? Like, would you be able to provide some examples of African societies?
That hair is deeply rooted in African identity. It's a given. It's a given because you can tell easily through the hair whether an individual is an African or a European. It's very easy to tell. Once you see the individual, you don't need to ask. You just know through the hair that, oh, this is an African. Oh, this is a European. That is why Wole Soyinka, a Nobel laureate in literature from Nigeria, said something very, very important too. In his response to negritude, this is Senghorian negritude. Leopold Sédar Senghor talked about negritude, where he admonished Africans to celebrate blackness. Talk about blackness, celebrate it. If you don't do it, others won't do it. But Soyinka said something that is kind of different from what Senghor said. He said, Africans don't need to announce who they are. They don't need any introduction. When you see them, you know them. Because for him, he said, a tiger does not shout its tigritude. When you see a tiger, you know it's a tiger. You don't go to a tiger and start asking, are you a tiger? You don't do that. So when you see an African, you don't go and start asking, are you an African? You just know it's an African. By the hair alone, you can tell that it's an African. In the same way, if you come to Nigeria, especially the Benin Kingdom, when you see a Benin chief, just by the hair, you know it's a Benin chief because of the way they shape the hair from the back, and then they reserve an arc in front. When you see a Benin chief, you don't start asking, are you a Benin chief? By the hair, you know it's a Benin chief. When you see a Yoruba woman from Nigeria, you know she's a Yoruba woman by the way she carries her hair. When you see an Hausa woman, the same way, you know that it's an African woman. That is why we see that hair is deeply rooted in African identity. Hair is very, very important for that. Thank you.
No, thank you. So basically, just for how someone's hair is presented, how it's styled, you will know in terms of from which society that they're from.
Once again, please.
No, you'll just know from how it's styled, from which
Yes.
society that they are from.
Yes, from the way the hair is styled, you can tell easily that, oh, this is a Yoruba style, this is Hausa style, this Igbo style. And for a Benin woman, you can tell too, oh, whether this is a princess or she's a queen, you can tell. The hair can give that idea.
Now, since, as we were discussing, a person's hair is tied to their identity, and it can as well indicate their status in society. This is a significant meaning, like this has a significant meaning for when, let's say, someone has a shaved head. Would you be able to speak to this as to how this is connected to their status in society?
Yes, yeah, I think I've just mentioned that in passing somewhere. That in some cultures in Nigeria, the Benin is very, very significant here. The culture of the people of the Benin people of Edo State, is such that the chiefs will have done their hair in certain ways, so that it is very, very distinctive. Now, whether the hair is funny or not funny, whether you like it or you don't like it, is not what matters here. But that hairstyle gives the chief his identity, and it makes him different from any other person in the society. So that's because you can change your outfit, but you will always carry your hair anywhere you go. So when you see a Benin chief, you just know, oh, this is a Benin chief, and that his status in the society is different from any other person in the society and should be accorded some respect as an African. The hair too has something to say, especially for a widow in Africa and in Nigeria specifically. When a woman is widowed, the next thing she does is to shave off her hair. Yes, to tell the world or the people around her that she's in her state of mourning her late husband, and that in fact she is not willing to socialize at that time or to get involved with any other individual romantically or whatsoever manner in the society. So when anyone sees her, oh, this woman is in a state of mourning and she's not ready to socialize. It is the same thing too when a king dies. When a king dies in Africa, in Benin especially, that's the Benin kingdom, all the males in that kingdom are expected to shave off their hair. Yes, they shave off their hair in honor of the departed king. And whoever comes into that community at that time, if you understand the culture and you just see all the males shaving off their hair, it sends a message across to you. Oh, something has happened in this kingdom. And then you ask, what's going on? Instantly, you can even ask, oh, did you lose your king? And you know that it is in fact the case, because all the men have to shave off their hair. So the hair has a message to pass across. So we can see how that it plays out in the status of individuals in the society, just like I mentioned the Benin chief.
So, it just shows just a level of respect depending on in terms of which society that they're in. Now, you touched on, I guess, again, to the point of, hair in females would tell a story and not just an expression for the sake of expression. Would you be able to elaborate on this particular point?
Yes. You see, when you take a look at the hair of a woman in Nigeria, it tells a story, really. And usually the story is about the background of the woman, the culture to which she belongs. Sometimes you see a woman in Nigeria when they are presenting their culture to the people, displaying a kind of hairstyle that is in the shape of a basket. When you see that, she's telling a story just by making her hair in the form of a basket. She's most likely to be traced to Benue State, the people of Benue State of Nigeria, who are referred to as the food basket of Nigeria. That state is referred to as the food basket of Nigeria. So when they come up with that kind of hairstyle, they are telling you something, that we are the food basket of Nigeria. In other cases, you will see some women carrying their hair, different strands of hair, beginning from the base, from the top, and then hanging at the middle, forming a bunch. Now, they are telling us a story, the story of unity. Different strands coming together to form a whole bunch, a whole unity. That's as Nigerians. Even though we may differ in tongues, in tribes, but that's in brotherhood we stand. And that's the people come together as a united force. So the hair has a whole lot of story to tell.
Thank you. And then, when you see someone with their hair in dreads or in locks, what is that connection to spirituality or spiritual powers? Would you be able to speak to that?
Yes. You see, in African worldview, nothing happens for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
It is believed that everything that happens has a reason. Now, even though things are obscure in nature, and that we may not be able to explain sufficiently how things happen at that metaphysical realm, but we always see the effects of things. We may not be able to explain the cause, but we see the effect, and the effects are pointing us to the cause or the causes of those things. So that the hair has something to do with spirituality is what certain denominations, Christian denominations in Nigeria believe, like those who belong to the white garment churches, like the Cherubim and Seraphim Church in Nigeria, and even the Celestial Church of Christ. It is believed that when a child is born with dreads, that child has prophetic powers. Now, whether that is the case or not is for them to substantiate, but it remains the fact that it gives us an identity, it gives them an identity. When we see them, we know who they are. When we see them carrying their dreads around, we know that, oh, these individuals belong to such and such denominations. But to that denomination, they believe that such a child born with dreads, when properly nurtured, can begin to display some spiritual significance, which will be of help to the people in that denomination.
Thank you. And then, would you be able to speak to some particular instances or narratives that exemplify moments of identity crisis in literature?
Yes. You see, we see some works. There are a lot of works that are cited in the process of writing that paper, like the Americana itself, written by Adichie. It's a very instructive book that points us to instances of identity crisis in literature. We also look at Gender and Hair Politics, an African philosophical analysis by Omotosho. And then there is Hair in African Arts and Culture by Serbia. There is the Power of Hair and Politics of Hair in African Context by Shunisani, as well as Black Hairstyle Politics by Mensah. These books have been able to point us to instances of identity crisis, where one individual begins to exhibit certain other traits at some other times due to hair. Let me point you to Americana. Ifemelu, for instance, the main character in that book. You see, at a point, there was a question about her identity because she relaxed her hair. When she relaxed her hair, it became difficult to know whether she was still an African or an American. And when she went on to cut her hair, it became a problem. And someone had to ask, are you a lesbian? So this brings about a kind of a crisis, an identity crisis of who the individual really is, just with the hair. Thank you.
No, thank you. And, in your opinion, what would you say are some of the potential avenues for further research or exploration in this intersectionality of hair and identity in literature?
Yeah, you see, the implication of some of those implications we could have would be that of misrepresentation. misrepresentation of hairstyles in Africa. Now, for instance, there could be that of impersonation. An individual could impersonate a Bini chief by just coming up with the hairstyle of a Bini chief. And then you see him, you accord him the respect that you should accord a chief. But that individual is actually not a chief. It could be someone impersonating a queen or the princess. And then you accord that individual the respect that you should give to a queen or a princess. Now, that will lead to a lot of problems. So for further research, it will be important for us to look at these kind of misrepresentation because it will lead to serious problems in the society. And even right now in Nigeria, the hair is already causing some problems. Yes, especially with security outfits. Most of the security agencies now give certain individuals some identity with the kind of hairstyle they carry. Youths, who are known to be involved in cyber crimes, carry certain hairstyle. Dreads, for instance. Mm-hmm. See, initially, I said that dreadlocks have spiritual significance. But this time around, the youths who carry short dreads are known to belong to certain syndicates that are involved in cyber crimes. And the security agents know this. But there are some individuals who just want to carry that hairstyle as a matter of passion. Youths as well, they want to explore different things. And when these security agents see them, they get them arrested and they start questioning them, thinking that they are, in fact, individuals who are engaging in cyber crimes. So there is a need for us to make that proper distinction so that there will not be this misinterpretation or misrepresentation of hairstyle and then the identity of individuals in the society. So I want to take a look at further research in those areas to see how we can curb some social ills in the society.
No, thank you so much. That was great, and just to be able to, I guess, to show the connection that hair isn't just for necessarily for style, but it does mean something to different societies as well. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Professor Fashola, to be able to come on and to speak to this and to speak to what you've written today.
Hoped you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and write a review for the episode wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you.